Actually, I do think this means you're the king of the nerds. Right? How does one become a king, though? Well, you're born into being a king. You have made a great achievement, so I think becoming the king of the nerds would be an understatement of what you have achieved. Right? Yeah. That would be an understatement. Like, to be a king, you just need to be born. And that's not a very grand achievement. That's something to say congratulations to. This is an achievement. This is something that you have made. Which is super cool. Colgate in on tab says the first king didn't be born to become a king. No, right. The first king was a warlord, and I'm guessing that took some effort as well. But also, I wouldn't say the warlord did a good job. The warlord was kind of a dick, wasn't he? Alright, so we used the word power. I want to define power, but power seems like a super difficult... Here we go. Economic power, power, international relations, social and political power. That's what we're talking about, right? Would we agree with this definition of what power is? Public power redirects here. Yes, that is what I wanted to look into. That is a weakness from my... I've had this assumption that it's bottom up, but I don't know enough about this, so I want to check this out. Dicks can do a good job as well. This is calling it in on tap. Of course they can. I think they made a dickish job. Well, maybe not. From our perspective, a warlord is a terrible person, but from the context where warlords exists, maybe they are doing a good job. They are providing structure and order. So maybe, yeah, the value judgment becomes from, yeah, it's a value judgment, right? Always with the word good and bad, it's always a value judgment that are based on where we are, who we are, and all that good stuff. Alright, so in social science and politics, power is the capacity of an individual to influence the actions. Alright, and Node-Runner says we're granted it from the hierarchy. What we can and cannot do, we are granted from the top. Well, I believe that the people at the top are granted it from the individuals at the bottom. That was the disagreement we had, right? And I'm thinking that both of those views are probably too simplified to actually be representing the truth now that I see this. So maybe I have been simple-minded. It's always fun to find something that you didn't think of. Alright. It's the capacity of an individual to influence the actions, beliefs, or conduct of others. Alright, so how much can you affect others, influence others? Beliefs? Wait, why do you need to... Why is this here? I mean, influence actions, I get that. That's politics, right? We decide what is allowed and what is not allowed. Yeah, conduct, behavior. Actions and behavior. That's a little bit confusion. Confusion? Fuck. I got confused. There we go. What about beliefs? That's super interesting. Here we go. Colgate in on tab says, I don't like calling people terrible. That's actually a good guideline to life, I think. Not calling people terrible. Yeah. I think you're a good role model on that, Colgate in on tab. I'll stop doing that, and I'll try to stop doing that as well. I think. People can do terrible acts, but the people themselves are not terrible. Yeah. I think I would like to have that view more. Blasphemous says, how much of their need to be ruled over continues to grow from learned helplessness? Wait. How much of whose need to be ruled over? Learned helplessness? Oh, the imagined North Koreans? Are we talking about them, Blasphemous? Did I miss something? The need to be ruled over? Oh, right, the warlords. Learned helplessness? Are you gonna argue for anarchy, Blasphemous? I mean, a lot of it, right? Helplessness. I mean, you become dependent on the structure you live in. I don't know if that's learned helplessness. I don't know how to hunt. Is that learned helplessness? I'm not a good gatherer either, for that matter. Does that mean I've learned helplessness by not gaining food? I don't know how to fish. Well, I've fished a couple of times, but I'm not very good at it. Is that learned helplessness? He said yes, but I don't think I think he said that before I asked my question. That question. I mean, the whole point of a society and the whole point of grouping together is that one person does this thing and another person does this thing. And by doing that, by structuring groups like that, by one doing one thing and one doing another thing, that means that I will not learn to do whatever the thing that... Like, I will not learn to do the thing that you will learn to do because we will do different things. Is that learned helplessness? You could learn how. I mean, I could, but I don't need to. I mean, I could learn. Well, it kind of feels weird. Like I've been saying all the time, people living in groups. And I'm thinking these groups work together is the assumption that I have, or that's why I always say they live in groups. Like, the human are a tribal species, right? We live in groups. We're a social species. We live in groups. I mean, we could learn how to... I mean, a single person could survive alone out in the forest, right? And then there are probably a lot of people that do. But our tendency is to live in groups, and I'm talking about groups. And I would say that it's... I don't quite get what the point of talking about learned helplessness is. I think I'm misunderstanding what you mean completely, Blasphemous. I probably need a better definition. Blasphemous says, and we determine that person's role's importance by wealth. How many of the highest paying wages that are really necessary? Wait. We determine that person's role's importance, how important the role is by wealth. Do we? Is that how wealth works? I don't think so. I don't believe that is how it works at all. There are so many important jobs that don't generate any wealth. I've made that argument plenty of times. Like, that's one of the unfortunate consequences of feminism, is that a lot of valuable work and roles of society that women had before, they didn't get paid for them. Instead of starting to paying people for that type of work, we just assume that people will not get paid at all, but will still do that work. So I don't agree with that at all, that we determine a person's role with wealth. I think the hope is, and that we want to do that, we're just very bad at it. How many of the highest paying wages are really that necessary? Exactly, yeah. So that I don't... that argument falls flat. I agree with you straight off. That's not an argument against anything that I've said, I think. But Nordrunner said earlier about this. I mean, it would be a great achievement, but the problem is I cheated these achievements. I mean, I have often been heard saying that cheating is for winners. And you have won, my friend. You have won. The website actually has a report feature for cheaters. Oh. And I reported myself because I don't think it's fair for me to be number one when other people are getting their achievements legit. Yeah, that's a valuable point. There should be different rankings that you don't get kicked but different rankings. Like you have different speed running rankings, right? For whatever rules that you want to have. Because I mean, even though you're not, I mean, it's not legit or whatever, it's just a different way to do it. And I would agree with you, comparing you to someone who doesn't cheat. It's an unfair comparison. Like someone who is trying to climb this ladder and not doing what you do, it's unfair towards them to put you on the same list. Yeah. However, as I thought I'd show it off before I get delisted from the leaderboard. Yeah. I mean, I hope you print screened it. I mean, I don't want to... If this was me, I would probably print screen it and like laminate it and put it on a wall. All right. Blasphemous says, I would argue from what we went through with COVID, the professions that were deemed the most necessary to continue functioning are also some of the lowest paid. And I would buy that argument, and I would argue that as well. And I think that is fucking... I don't want to have a society like that. I've made a similar argument about how I believe that the job of cleaning toilets, if we did get universal basic income, the salary, the wage, whatever word you want to, the payment you get for cleaning toilets would skyrocket compared to what it is today. Because people would just be, nah, fuck that, man, I'm not doing that. And then we would have a lot of filthy fucking toilets. So the wage would go up and up and up and up until someone said, well, I'll do that. So I think that we do not at all determine the person's role's importance by wealth. And you have a good point here that my opinion is that there should be some type of correlation from what we value and how much you get paid to do something. Colgate Innotep says, yeah, Node Runner should be on like a glitch category. Yeah. Do farmers have high wages? Think so. I think it depends. In Sweden, I'm pretty sure they do all right. Like upper middle class, something like that. I think. I'm not sure though. Like since like peasants have all often been seen as the poor people, right? The ones not getting paid a lot. And that's a little bit connected to farmers, but now like the work that historically all the peasants made has been replaced by machines. So a lot of the farmers have a lot of machines. And they can afford a lot of machines to do a lot of farming on a small number of people. So I think they do all right. They could probably do way better because food is kind of important. Just from my value judgment, I would probably pay them higher than they are paid. Probably, but I mean, I don't know. Blasphemous says, I would give you 5 social credit points for cleaning the toilets. You would not be able to continuously mess up the toilet and clean it for more points. Yeah, no. The system would notice and take away the points and penalize you if you tried to cheat it. Oh man. Oh man, that's so fucked up. No, that's why I don't mind. Actually, I don't think I mind capitalism at all. Now that we talked when we did the comparison about capitalism and consumerism, I think I really dislike consumerism. But I mean, if you just shunt in some extra power towards the people with like economical power, because economical power is political power, right? That has to be it, right? The more money you have, yeah, right. The more money you have, the more power you get, right? Which, and as far as the system is right now, money is kind of a top-down system, isn't it? The top are holding all the money, and the bottom are fighting for scraps that the top just allows them to have or not to have. So that would be in favor of... Well, but that's in our structure. However, like we have been, humanity, as I have been saying, we have been organizing in hierarchies. And one could argue that the people on top of these hierarchies are the ones with the power. I would just say that power comes from the individual. Oh man. Social credits, eh? Colgate on tap says food is at the bottom in the hierarchy of needs. Yes. Food and shelter. And again, I mean that, what is it called again? Oh, we did check this. The Maslow. Here we go. This has been disputed, right? And there are some issues with it. So it's not a perfect model, right? It's not. Don't see this as black and white. But a lot of people, this is the idea that it works like this. Okay, if you don't have food, then food becomes most important to you. That's the value of this idea. Like, these are the things that physiological needs, you fucking die without these. Like, fast. You die fast without these. You starve, or you... What's that called? When you don't get any water. Oh, whatever. Freeze to death. Or you just no rest. Like, so this I think there is a consensus, but people will also forego this for reasons up here, right? I know has been this monkey study, right, where they put a, oh man, it was so fucking cruel, but they put a child monkey in a cage with either, I think they have two. They have a choice. Either they get a fluffy, like, toy, one of those safety toys that makes you feel safe and all warm and fuzzy inside, or they get an ugly-ass mechanical contraption that gives you food. And very often the monkeys will choose like, some people have argued that it's intimate relationship, like you have your friend, your imaginary friend, choosing that over food, and like, so there's a little bit, it's not a perfect way, but it's No, Donner says it's more of a task rather than as Colgate InnoTab says, a glitch category. Yeah. It's called dehydrate. Yeah. Is that you die from dehydration? Yes, you die from dehydration. there we go. Thanks, Blasphemous. Colgatino Tab says, yeah, I'd put security at the bottom as well. You die pretty fast if you get killed as well. Well, security, safety, it's... yeah, right? It's kind of goes into shelter. It's kind of weird that it doesn't say this, because that's how I remember it. Shelter is the word that I would use here. A place to call your home, I guess. And yeah, you can die pretty fast from the lack of shelter, right? But these are worse. Like, you can flee without security. You can flee and stay alive in different ways. It is possible. It's fucking difficult, right? That is why food and water is more important, right? Food and water is more important. Unless they kill you with a spoon, that's even worse. Oh man, what a nightmare. Blasphemous says, I enjoy the mouse utopia experiment. Yes, nice reflection of the mental health of society in cities. I've heard that the mouse utopia experiment, I don't think I want to get into that right now because that's a little bit off topic, but I've heard that it had some criticism, that it's not a perfect one. I have often used that as a like black and white, this is how the world is, but I've had to like take a step back on that. It's more like you say, it's a nice reflection of the mental health of societies in cities, yeah. Like there are issues. Blasphemous says, sorry to the moon, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, actually, yeah. No to the moon today. I haven't even finished reading this, and I'll stay a little bit longer today. But yeah, that thing about addiction, right? That addiction is a lot about how the people are feeling on these here. I mean, depression is usually on these, when we're talking about these things, this is where depression shows up. Down here, it's not very common to talk about depression. Because you're fucking dead. You're fucking dead. Alright. Oh. Power. This is what I was gonna read, not the Maslow. Alright. Alright, beliefs, I don't know if but we can just skip beliefs and say actions and conduct. You can, yeah. You have the power. You have the capacity to change how other people does things. And I mean, from small groups, that's super easy. Like, you're powerful. You can scare someone to do it, or you can convince them to do it with facts and logic, or you can, or you can manipulate them emotionally. There are many ways in small groups to manipulate people. Colgate on tap says, is off topic even a concept in this chat? I mean, yes. Yes, it is. Only when he wants to go to lunch soon. Oh, maybe. I mean, a little bit. I'm really into this, right? Since I'm emotionally invested in my definition of democracy. So finding any chink in that definition makes me excited. So that is why something is off topic right now. It's because I'm curious about this. I want to read this full thing, and I want to see if we can talk about it in top down or bottom up, if it's even possible to talk in that way. And yeah, right. So I'm curious. So I'm looking here. The term authority is often used for power that is perceived as legitimate. The term authority is often used for power that is perceived as legitimate. So what does by the social structure? All right. So authority is what I'm talking about, right? Authority is granted by the social structure. That is, by the individuals. Not to be confused with authoritarianism, which is a form of government. Now we're just talking about the abstract term authority. And what I have been saying, to put it in this words, is that our made up idea, well, what we think North Korea works, right? works like is authoritarianism. And what I had been saying is that the authority within authoritarianism, these are two different things, and I agree with that. Authority is something granted by the people, by the social structure, but authoritarianism is the form of the government. And maybe they are not perceived to have legitimate authority, which we don't know. Like, we have talked a little bit on both ways, and our example has been like, I have been working from the assumption that the people get mind controlled or feared into, like scared into whatever, to just follow along with the authoritarianism. That is not necessarily perceived as legitimate. This says that it's perceived as legitimate. So anyone who is scared into following along, that is not authority. And that would be the people that we would say would want to not necessarily rebel, but they perceive the authoritarian government to suck. So they would not legitimacy. In political science, legitimacy is the right and acceptance of an authority. Usually, I mean, they can, again, if we're talking about the different spheres, they can ethically and politically not see it as legitimate, but they can live in accordance with the authority that exists, right? So we have to, if we agree with that, like, they perceive it as not legitimate without taking any action. They can have the perception that the authority is illegitimate. They can see, they don't perceive it as something. But then again, that's from the social structure. This is right. This definition is what I've been talking about, right? Authority is what I've been talking about within this definition. It is perceived by the social structure, not by the individual, but by the structure, by the group. And maybe I have been confusing it with authoritarianism. That's interesting. Let's see. Blasphemous. There's an excellent book on that subject. Bruce Levine, Resisting a Legitimate Authority. By Bruce E. Levine. A Thinking Person's Guide to Being an Anti-Authoritarian. Strategies, Tools, and Models. Oh, nice. So it's a strategy guide. That's so, like, if we're thinking, if we want to change how stuff works if we wanted to help out from our perspective, right? If we assume that the North Koreans, like most of them, that the social structure, that is it, though. In an authoritarianism government, no, the perception doesn't equal action, right? And I've been talking a lot about action. So authoritarianism, rejection of political plurality and the use of a strong central power to preserve the political status quo. And then you can read, if you feel like you're in that situation, then reading this book is a very good idea to help you find strategies how to resist. I'm guessing political actions? Colgate in on tab says, of course legitimacy is right. Rigged? Wait. Fuck, I didn't get that. The capacity to comply with abusive authority is humanity's fatal flaw. Well, That's a bit extreme, but I guess in the context. Fortunately, I mean, it has made us achieve many great things. Like, it's a two-sided coin. It's not a fatal flaw. It has also helped us flourish and take control over this planet quite a bit. Noderunner says, a strategy guide? I didn't think they made those anymore. We have the internet now. Oh man, but what if the internet is fragile, man? Fragile. Book for strategy guides. Especially if your internet is censored. Then these books, you can spread these books around. Fortunately, there are anti-authoritarians, people are comfortable questioning the legitimacy of authority and resisting its illegitimate forms. However, resisting illegitimate authority reveals these rebels are regularly scorned, shunned, financially punished, psychopathologized, criminalized, and even assassinated. Yes, exactly. This is the exact same reason I said why I feel that the conspiracy theorists fills a pretty good, it fills a function to society, right? Just like he's saying here that what did he call them? The rebels. Let's call them rebels. That these rebels are feeling that similar kind of function, right? Yeah, questioned authority, challenged authority, and that's room for improvement, right? If you're not allowed to question it, then there is no way to improve it. And there are always improvements to be made, right? There are always improvements to be made on everything, all the time. Profiling a diverse group of US anti-authoritarians from, and then a couple of names. Noam Chomsky. Oh man, that name shows up everywhere, all the time, in order to glean. And he was a bit of a semanticist, a little bit. Not really, though. It was more about grammar. In order to glean useful lessons from their lives, resistant and legitimate authority. Oh. These are all Americans, though. So maybe that wouldn't help the North Koreans. It's a strategy guide for... Well, it seems like this is a book about critical thinking. No? Maybe? Noderunner says, the internet is fragile. That's why I'm getting an amateur radio license. Oh, it's so sad that you need to get a license. Blasphemous says, oh, it was better in the olden days. No, I'm sorry, I'm kidding. He said, I miss the internet of the old before they became and gentrified it. There are good stuff and bad stuff, I would say. I love Wikipedia, for example. Here we go. So, let's get this through. Like authority, right? This term authority. Yeah. That is not... I'm talking about something similar. I'm talking about action. But one can hold beliefs that they do not act upon, which is a failure of my definition of democracy. Right? Because the ideals themselves would hold value. But on the other hand, if you think that they are not legitimate, you're also more prepared for the call to action, and you're more prepared to call others to action. Just the idea itself. That's the whole point of V for Vendetta, right? If you've seen that movie, is that people had the perception that it was illegitimate. They didn't like the the authority and whatnot. But they needed a catalyst to be called to action. This was the being prepared to do any action, right? So the two would need to be intertwined, right? It's not only action, it's about perception and action. And if you don't have any power, then that reduces your possibility to make any action. Blasphemous beliefs should not always be acted upon. Theodore Kaczynski? I've heard that name before. Who's that? Wait, did I misspell something? Theodore Kaczynski. Here we go. Theodore Kaczynski. Unabomber. Yeah. Yeah, beliefs should not always be acted on. Yeah. I mean, well, you always do though, right? You have a belief how the world functions, and you act according to those beliefs. So even though you don't act on the beliefs, you act on the basis of those beliefs, right? You have a worldview. This is how the world functions, and you act accordingly. That is how all people act? No? Yes? Yes. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that is it. And then something happens. We fail, if I'm allowed to say the word. We fail with our intentions, and then we learn that our beliefs were mistaken, and we improve our beliefs and our worldview, and we act according to our new beliefs until we find what's it called? Another anomaly. And I mean, I guess that was what we were talking about yesterday, right? Blasphemous is the belief that voting causes change would still be a belief. Yeah. The belief that voting causes change would still be a belief. I mean, I see your point and your arguments, and I buy them straight off, right? That your vote doesn't make any big difference. Not in the structure of society as it is. But I would say that inaction is also action. Right? You cannot step outside. Like, you are part of society. That is just believing otherwise is naive, right? You are part of society. My argument was that not voting is less than voting. Well, not even cause, but your influence over society is less than anyone who votes. Their influence over society is bigger than your influence. I'm not saying that it causes change, I'm just saying that their influence is bigger than yours. Legitimacy says, nah, society is part of me. Yeah, exactly. Society creates people and people create society. It's an interchangeable thing, right? It goes back and forth. Like humans built the first society, the first human societies. That's a circle definition, right? That's a tautology. That's true just in essence of, well, just by the words we're talking, right? I am allowing for other ways to live, but that won't be allowed. I am allowing other ways to live, that won't be allowed. Well, do you have that power? Since we're talking about political and social power, do you have the power to allow? Is that your decision to make? I think not. I don't quite understand what you're saying, but other ways to live, that is not your decision to make because you don't have the political power. You can have the political opinion that you want some ways to live to be allowed, and then you can work within your society. You can take action to try to change the behavior of others, but change the rest of society. And for you to be able to do that, I mean, you cannot do that alone, right? You need a majority of people. And Plasma says, for example, Maine, the hermit sentenced to re-enter society with counseling. All right. So, no. I fucking hate this. There we go. All these cookies. Actually, I don't need to read the thing. I mean, the title says it all, right? I only need to look at the URL. Sentenced to re-enter society with counseling. A man who claims to have spent 27 years living in the woods as a hermit pleaded guilty to burglary. Yeah, burglary is not being a hermit. Burglary is taking part of society. He was burglaring and stealing stuff that was from society, right? He had an interaction with society. He didn't fuck off and do his own thing. He is interacting with society. Right? Should have given you another site, lol. No, that's fine. It's fine. But I feel that this is not a very good example because he interacted with society within the rules of society, rules that I disagree with. I really liked Philosophy Tube's latest video about the prison system and the abolishment of the prison system. That is a goal worthwhile fighting for, the abolishment of the prison system. It's a bit blue-eyed, but I feel that it's a good goal to have. But like he interacted with society. Like he spent 27 years and that was fine. And they rightly said, well, now you're interacting with society. You're not living as a hermit. You are living within our society. So that is, you gotta live by our rules if you want our stuff. Right? That's what they said. Kinda. That's one interpretation, right? He had to steal because he had to steal because should he have started a garden, he would have been more likely to be found. And if he became found, what then? Wouldn't people just leave him alone? Colgate in on tap says, can't societies interact with each other? Yes, of course they can. Societies interact all the time. And that's actually confusing. Yeah, yeah, of course they can. I don't understand the question, Colgate in on tap. What's the point? Are you meaning that he is a society himself and he is interacting with another society? Yeah, but I mean, if two societies interact with each other and one society steal all the other, like if you have two municipalities and like one municipality goes over and starts stealing all the stuff from the other municipality, there will be a disagreement and a fight. Something will happen. That other municipality will react. And that is what happened, right? He interacted with the society that, let's assume that he just wanted to check out. That's not what he did. He did not check out. So he was forced to steal. He was forced to be part of society. And I can see that, yeah, he was forced to be part of society. And I would agree with you, yeah, society forced him to be part of society. And that's kind of rude. I would agree with that, but he was still interacting with society. I mean, the burglar and the theft. Like, the burglar and the theft is even higher risk to get found, right? He did get found by burglary and stealing. Just creating a garden for himself? I don't know. Blasphemous says, in America you can't live in the middle of nowhere without owning land, owning the land and paying taxes. There was no legal way for him to do it. Yeah, and I guess that's a little bit fucked up, I suppose. And I would agree with you, but I mean, there's a different thing. I would not have judged him living out in the forest, having a garden, as interacting with society. And I'm pretty sure he would not have ended up in court. Well, I mean, that becomes a problem when every piece of land is owned, and that's a fucked up thing in itself. Then you have a point that he would have to make some sort of concerted effort to not stay in land where people would do that. Well, don't you have like... No, that would fuck him over as well. I was thinking of like protected land. Yeah, that's like, we're a group animal. It becomes difficult for those very few individuals who really don't want to interact with any other person. Those are so fucking rare, and sucks for them. Oh man. But yeah, like I'm all for an inclusive society, so I would be all for someone being able to be allowed to do this. I'm all for someone being able to live like this without fear of being thrown off. Like someone could just build a home in the forest and just live in it and grow their own food. That is something I would be for, indeed. There's another story of a man that lived in a national park. Yeah, exactly. Never bothered anyone and kept his area clean. Yet when he was found out, he was jailed and forced to live in a homeless shelter and work to pay off the fine. After 7 years. Oh. Could have left to another country, right? Well, he would need to travel, and travel, that type of long travel, I mean, he could start walking. But if you wanted to travel to another country, that would take a lot of interaction with society, right? And that is what he didn't want to do. He didn't want to do that. And we have borders that he would have to cross, and yeah, it sucks for these people. I get that. And society is maybe a little bit bigger on its reach than it should be, but that's the way it is, I suppose. He did not have any political power to make those decisions, though. Wait, where was that? What point did I make? Yeah, right. Like you said, Blasphemous. I am allowing. That's not up to you to make that allowances. Right? That's the way And I think that's part of Node Runner's argument, right? That is not how we organize ourselves as human beings. We organize ourselves in a structure, a hierarchical structure, which will put the power at the top, which will be trickled down from the top. I'm guessing. So it's not up to you, it's up to the group. And actually, I don't think I've been very bottom-up focused. But I've never said it's up to the individual. I've been talking about the individual as part of the whole, and that it is the whole that makes the decision. Right? I've never said that the individual has the power. I've been saying that the individuals do actions, political actions, and whatever the group, what the norm becomes in the group, that is how the society becomes structured, right? So the individual only has power in what groups they align with. It's the groups that have the power then. So I would probably end up in a similar manner it's just a little bit different perspective than I would say that the power in reality is a top-down kind of thing, and the power comes from hierarchies, and it's not given by the individual, but it's generated by individuals in groups, if that makes sense. But I would probably have to go with what Node Runner said, that power is a top-down structure, kind of, right? Blasphemous says, I believe in do what thou wilt. Oh, there is anarchism going on. As long as it does... No, right, it's not anarchism. As long as it doesn't hurt someone else. So who decides what hurts someone else or negatively affects them? Who decides that? Blasphemous. Do you decide that? Do I decide that? Do the group democratically decide what affects them negatively or hurts someone? And do people agree what hurts one person, does that also hurt another person? Right? I think most people, I'm not sure, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I can imagine that thing, do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt someone else. I think that just on the basis of that, I'm pretty sure most people would agree with you. I'm not sure, but I would guess. I guess. I'm just arguing that it's not that easy. It's not that easy at all. Some people don't want to help the homeless because it brings their home values down. That would be a very bad example of not doing something because it negatively... Wait. Some people don't want to help the homeless because it brings their home values down. Yeah. And that would be a very bad example of not doing something because it... double negatives. Alright, that would be a very bad example of not doing something because it negatively affected someone. Alright. So, forcing these people to help the homeless, paying taxes to help the homeless, that would hurt those people, right? So forcing those people to pay taxes would hurt those people, while not forcing them to pay taxes would hurt the homeless people. Well, it would be the lack of helping them, though. It wouldn't hurt the homeless people. It would not help the homeless people. Is that what you're saying, Blasphemous? But at the same time, having a society that is structured in a way that generates homeless people, that hurts people. If you generate a society that, if you create a society that generates more homeless people, then that is actively hurting people. That's hurting someone else. So, what do we do? What do we do? Do we help the homeless? Do we not help the homeless? Either way, someone gets hurt. Whatever we do. Don't you think so, Blasphemous? The idea of home value being higher or lower is because it is close to a homeless shelter. It's a sad one. I would agree with that assessment, but that is a personal value judgment, and other people would not agree with you. And are you allowed to hurt them, but they are not allowed to hurt the homeless people? Do you see the problem with, I believe in do what you will as long as it doesn't hurt someone else? How it doesn't work out that way? That is not how reality functions. Right? Because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. People are in disagreements. Blasphemous. See the problems society then creates for itself. I mean, yes. Society creates a lot of issues for itself, but it also creates a lot of value for itself. That's like part of why we are being so successful, is that we group up. That whole thing that we were talking about earlier, that you do this thing, I do that thing. I can be more efficient in doing this thing, and you can be more efficient in doing that thing, and we will create more good stuff all around. More free time, not to fight for survival. I don't have to grow all my own food. I can go down to the store and buy it. I don't have to build my own computer. Someone else can build it for me. We can have the internet. Only a society can have the internet. A single individual cannot create the internet. And the internet is a super useful thing. It's great. I love the internet. I love the internet. There are so many great things about society. So many, and yes, there are so many problems with society as well. Right? And the problems are problems of being alive. A lot of the problems are that. It's a problem of ethics. Those problems are not necessarily always created by society for society by being incompetent, although I agree with you, a lot of incompetence and problems that we create could be avoided. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy, especially when you have when the masses don't care. Like, yes, but then we complicate that symbiotic relationship. How do you mean, Blasphemous? I mean, it is a complicated symbiotic relationship. I mean, as we said, like humans living, we do organize in structures, and those structures are hierarchical in nature. That's what we do. I'm not saying that we always have to do that in the future, but so far, that is what humans do and have always done. So if we assume and accept that that is how we work as human beings, then we can try to organize those structures as well as we possibly can. And we're not very good at it, but we can strive to become better. And that is what we do, right? We strive to become better. Just throwing the idea of society all away, that's not real. It's like anarchy is a fantasy. It's a fantasy. Anarchy would be anarchy for a week, and then there would start being warlords. Like it would just be chaos. A lot of death, a lot of suffering, a lot of people getting hurt. And then we would very soon organize ourselves into structures. And since we threw out all the old structures, then we had to start from scratch. And what do we do when we start from scratch? It is warlords, and that's even more suffering and death. It's way worse than it is right now. It's way worse. Way worse. It's not even funny how much worse it would be. Like, the problems we create for ourselves are way better than the problems that type of society creates for itself. Blasphemous says that as much good as we do together, we also cause much harm, for each other, from ideas such as greed. I agree totally. And one way to mitigate that is not to throw out the society we have. In my opinion is that the best way forward is to continue the path, do the iterative changes, change a little bit all the time, change a little bit, make it a little bit better. Each year we try to make ourselves better. Sometimes we screw up and we have a downslope with a couple of, maybe a decades will suck, but then we keep on moving on. We learn stuff from that decade and we do stuff better and better and better. Right, that's why I'm arguing so much for universal basic income. Because universal basic income is it's a simple idea to wrap your head around, and it would help mitigate many of the problems that we talk about, that we find, that both you and me find annoying, that society creates. They're like the homeless. Well, my idea of universal basic income is that everybody has enough money for shelter and food. I mean, a home and food. Everybody has that much money. That's the bare minimum for universal basic income. So, homelessness, done. It's over and done with. It's not a problem anymore. But it's not easy to organize that structure. It's not super easy to just solve that idea. And also, that would mean that everybody who does not want that society would need to be bent over. We would need to hurt them. They would be unhappy. Like, that is hurting them and how they want to live their lives. Because they like having more than others. Maybe they like the suffering of others. I don't know what they want. I can't really relate, but they want other different things. That's the whole problem. That's why we have politics, because people don't agree. People have different opinions. That's just the way it is. Like, some people are greedy. And who are you to say that they are not allowed to be greedy? Isn't that hurting them potentially? Saying that, oh no, you are not allowed to be greedy. We can all have an intelligent discussion here without fighting amongst each other, But the majority, when you start throwing around ideas, it all goes to hell. But for the majority, when you start throwing around ideas, it all goes to hell. And I mean, I have sympathy and empathy for that, because these are questions, you get emotional about them, right? And sometimes a lot of people are not very good at handling their emotions and being civil about it. I'm not sure it's about Yeah, that's not about intelligence. It's about emotions. It's not about logic and stuff like that. It's about emotions. Like most of our, like the view you have of greed, it's an emotionally based view of greed, and it's the same that same that I have, right? While others like, what's he called? Uncle Scrooge? His emotions towards greed is a warm, fuzzy feeling. He doesn't have a bad emotional reaction to greed like you and me have. And those discussions become so difficult because we get so emotional and we get worked up. And like you probably notice, I get worked up. And usually when you're emotional in a heightened emotional state, it's easily to hurt someone else's feelings, and then their feelings gets hurt, so they hurt your feelings back, because that is what you do. When someone hurts your feeling, you hurt them right back, and then it derails, and there is no good to no discussion being had. So how do we deal with that problem? We try to empathize, we try to sympathize, and try to apologize when you say stupid shit, and you ask people to, well, if I say stupid shit, call me out on it. And please do call me out. Don't be rude about it. I mean, if I'm in an emotional state and I say something that hurts your feelings, then if you can, it's better to, could you take a deep breaths and look over what you just said? Something like that. Would you exchange privacy for UBI if that was a requirement? Actually, I have flip-flopped. I'm not even for privacy anymore. That's interesting, right? I was voting 2 times, voting on the Pirate Party, and those guys were all about privacy. But I'm not even for privacy much anymore. All this data collection that is happening from all these companies, I've completely flip-flopped. Kind of like 2 years ago, I think I flip-flopped. Like an adult. Yeah. All this data collection is too fucking useful. Think of all the psychology that can be studied by all these data. It's so much. So I've completely flipped I don't mind the gathering of data. What I do want, what I feel is super important, is that all the data becomes open source in the public domain. That everybody gets access to all the data that is being gathered and how it is being gathered, so people can, so they get informed. It's properly informed consent, right? What we have now is not really properly informed consent, like informed what is it being used for. Not, I mean, we do have it, I suppose, properly informed consent, but I would have the uses of the data. Everybody should be able to use it. That is my political view. That is where I want us to go. Yes, gather all the data, but also publish all the data. That is the way I have. So yes, privacy for UBI in a heartbeat. I think UBI is super important. But then again, like, I'm talking about Sweden, right? In Sweden at the moment, well, yet, privacy is not that important. Privacy becomes important the more you move towards authoritarianism. The more you move towards authoritarianism, the more important privacy becomes. So, oh fuck, that's such a difficult question. I think I have to backtrack. I don't know. Oh man, I don't know. Oh well. Blasphemous. I think they get upset because they didn't think it through very much. And bought into an idea as an identity. Yeah, partly. Partly that. Also, I think that will to power, that Nietzschean idea, that, this type of power. I think there is part of us that craves this type of power. Well, no, we crave to not be, from our perspective, treated unfairly. And if someone puts forth an idea that we interpret as treating us unfairly, then we get angry and sad. Like being angry and sad when people are greedy, because we feel that that is treating people unfairly. While the greedy people feel that, where are you going to take all my money with all the taxes? That's unfair. I'm paying way more taxes than everybody else. They feel angry and upset because they feel like, who is the greedy one? It's not me who's greedy. It's everybody else who wants the greedy hands on my money, my hard-earned money that I managed to generate. Right? So everybody becomes emotional. So yeah, sometimes you can identify with an idea. I've made that mistakes plenty times. But also, wait, it's so late. Oh man, it's time for lunch. Fuck. But I wanted to read this. I wanted to finish it. Node Runner says the train should have been called derailed. Counter-Strike joke. Nice. Train, yeah, derailed. Man, yes. Why not? That would have been great. So, what did I come to? Like, I was agreeing with Node Runner that yes, power is like how it's structured and how we as humans structure our society is in a way where the power comes from the top down. However, like, it is, let's say it is given. I don't like the word given. I don't know. It's time for lunch. Let's go with given. It is given from the top down, but it's generated from the bottom up, if that makes sense. It's not that the individual has power that it gives to the top. It is just by existing in society. Since I am here, I can have power over me, and I can fight against that power, or I cannot, right? If I'm not here, then when I'm dead, society can't have any power over me, if that makes sense. So, power is given. The fuck? What word did you use? Do you remember, Node Runner? It was way earlier in the chat. You had such a good. You put it. Here we go. But I think power comes from the bottom up. All right. Yeah. The power comes from the top down, but it's generated from the bottom up. Would you agree with that, Node Runner? I think that checks out. Yeah. That's an improvement. It's not I don't reject my idea of democracy, but I have to think about it because there is improvements to be made of the idea, because it's fairly simple and not super well thought out yet, but it's something along the lines that like having the power to do actions. I mean, you can grab power for yourself by force, for example. But then you would need to generate power to some other authority that could fight against the first, what you perceive as the illegitimate society. Like in North Korea, for example, you would need to start an organization and generate power for that organization, which is super difficult because they don't have much like actual physical energy to generate power. They can't get food for this and stuff like that. But yeah, it is so late. But it's actually, I feel I'm happy at that dropping off point of power. Like sleeping on it and letting it lie for, I don't know, days, weeks, and then talking about it again. So thanks again for hanging out. And yeah, an extra interesting discussion today. so much interest, so skip this. Skip this game completely. Alright, we'll play you tomorrow. And thanks, and sleep tight, you guys. And I'm gonna have a nice little lunch. Cheers.